Hello there, my name's Gary Sims and this is Gary Explains. Now if you look at one of the antennas on the Honor Router 3, you'll see it says Wi-Fi 6. In fact, it says Wi-Fi 6 Plus, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the question is today is, what is Wi-Fi 6? Is it worth it? Should you upgrade? How does it work? And so on. So if you want to find out more, please let me explain. So Wi-Fi 6 or 802.11ax is the successor of 802.11ac, which is retrospectively being called Wi-Fi 5, and it works on both 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, something that Wi-Fi 5 didn't do. That was a 5 gigahertz only Wi-Fi, and it offers the biggest improvements in terms of high density scenarios. So that's offices, shopping malls, airports and so on. So this of course is to handle the fact that when we're using Wi-Fi in a big space, there are lots and lots of people connecting to the system, and the way it achieves that is this thing called OFDMA, which we'll talk a bit about in a little bit. And the theoretical max data speed is up by 37%. So here are some numbers you're never going to see with actual real world usage, but it was 7 gigabits was the kind of the theoretical maximum at the lowest data level. Okay, and that was in 256 QAM on 160 megahertz channel. That's now 9.6 gigabits per second on a 1024 QAM on 160 megahertz channel. So it's not like it's great speed jumps just because you're going from 5 to 6. There are other important things going on here, though of course it is faster, and we will see that in some testing that I'll show you in a moment. So how do we deal with this lots and lots of users thing? Well, we've got this new technology called OFDMA, orthogonal frequency division multiple access, and the multiple bit there is the key phrase to this, because this means you can talk to multiple clients at the same time. OFDMA is widely used in cellular networks, but it's something brand new to Wi-Fi. With Wi-Fi 5 and before, network congestion was caused by simultaneous requests, which cause slowdown since the clients must form a queue to complete the transmission. So if there are lots of clients talking all at the same time, well, get behind me, Jack, let me finish my request first, then you can have a go, that kind of thing. So talking of multiple clients, and this is something going back to earlier versions of Wi-Fi, if you're kind of, in a public space and you've got 2, 3, 4 people all connecting to the same access point, how do they know when they're allowed to transmit and not transmit? Because obviously, like two people talking, if you talk over each other, nobody understands anything, and so it's all lost. And it's the same with Wi-Fi. If two radios transmit to the access point at the same time, then just going to receive garbage at the other end. So there was this system called Enhanced Distributed Channel Access, EDCA, and it provides a contention-free access to the channel, to the access point, for a period of time called a transmit opportunity. I won't go into all the algorithms it uses, but basically they have to kind of listen to see if anybody else is talking. If nobody else is talking, they try to talk, and then if, and they go say, is it all right if I talk? And this is back and forth things that happen. And when you know that you can talk, it's called a TX op, a transmit opportunity. And a TX op is a time slot during which a station, that means a handset or the access point, can send as many frames as possible. Now here's the interesting thing, managing TX ops can take up to 30% of the available bandwidth, because, client number 1 says, oh, I'm going to talk, and then client 2 says, no, I'm talking, and then they both back off, and then client 3 kind of tries to sneak in, and there's this big argument going on to make sure that only one of them is talking at a time. Now, when a TX op is available, when there is an opportunity, data is only sent to one client per radio, so we're ignoring any MIMO here, just talking one radio, one client. So that's the problem that Wi-Fi 6 tries to fix. So OFDMA divides a Wi-Fi channel into smaller frequency groups called resource units, and an access point can communicate with multiple clients by assigning them specific resource units. So a 20 megahertz channel can be subdivided into 242 resource units. If the access point is communicating with one user, it will use all 242 resource units. That means inside, say your home, if you're the only person home and you're talking over Wi-Fi, it's going to get all of the resources. It doesn't lose out in this situation. If there are two of you and you're both using Wi-Fi at the same time, then you get 106 resource units each. There are 4 users, they get 52 resource users each, and there's a maximum of 9 users this system works for per 20 megahertz. And of course, we've got 40 megahertz, 80 megahertz channels. So of course, that goes up to 1836 simultaneous users. So how those resource units are allocated change per TX op. This is important. It's not like you assign, some resource units for the next half an hour to a particular device. It's literally every opportunity the access point says, right, this is what I'm going to do. These are the people I'm going to talk to. This is how we're going to work, guys. Everyone listen, let's do it. Now, with Wi-Fi 5, the idea was the access point tried to send as much data as possible to one client for this TX op, and then it would go down the queue, jump to another client for the next TX op, try kind of get everybody service, try to send everybody some information. But with Wi-Fi 6, it sends bits of data to several clients during a TX op, reconfiguring it dynamically for each TX op. So it might be the same client, it might be different clients, and the access point knows what it needs to do to keep talking to all those different clients and trying to get the traffic moving. We don't want a traffic jam. We want the traffic moving, even if it's only inching forward a little bit at a time. Sometimes we want things to move. So let's try to talk about this in a diagram. Here we've got a 20 megahertz channel, for example. Time across the bottom shows the TX ops. And this is Wi-Fi 5. Basically, talk to client 1 using all the 20 megahertz or, of the channel, or even 40 or 80 megahertz. Then talk to client 2, then talk to client 3, then talk to client 4, then and so on and so on. Of course, it's all happening very, very fast. We're talking 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz. So there's lots going on here. Things are being measured in microseconds. So this is all happening very fast, but there's a queue being formed. And the heavier the traffic, the longer the queue, the bigger the queues. But with Wi-Fi 6, with OFDMA, here we can see the same kind of setup, time and the channel. And on the first TX op, it's sending to just one client, the blue client here. In the next one, we see it's dividing it up into 2. So it's chatting to 2 clients in the same guy. So both clients are actually now getting some data to them. In the next one, it's chatting to 3. Then it just goes back to chatting to 1 again, then to 3 again. So this is completely dynamic. But the point is that this 20 megahertz channel is now being divided up so that you can talk to multiple clients at once, get the traffic flowing. That's really, if you understand that picture, you've kind of understood OFDMA as much as us normal people need to understand it. Okay, here's an important thing to know. The use of resource units only applies to Wi-Fi 6 clients. So for backwards compatibility, other Wi-Fi clients might also be communicating with the access point, and then of course it's not going to use resource units. It's going to just talk in the way it did before. And so therefore it still applies the same rules of contention as we talked about earlier, EDCA, everybody's screaming, I want to talk, no, you be quiet, I'll let you talk. And so it's important that the more Wi-Fi 6 clients are on a network, the better it will perform. If there's one person using a Wi-Fi 6 client, everybody else is using Wi-Fi 5, then you're not going to get the benefits of that. And the key thing is not to confuse this with multiple user MIMO. This is something completely different to do with when there's a transmission going on towards out there in a TX op, it can then divide up that frequency into little resource units, something new for Wi-Fi 6. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, if you look here on the aerial, the antenna of the Honor 3 router, you can see it talks about Wi-Fi 6. In fact, it talks about Wi-Fi 6 Plus. Why do they say Plus? The reason it's Plus is because the Honor Router 3, can actually do 160 megahertz channels. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Before I go any further, I'd like to point out this is not a paid advertisement. I do not receive any money whatsoever from Honor for making this video. They were kind enough to send me a review unit, and there are some affiliate links in the description if you would like to buy this device, and it will help out the channel if you use that link. If you don't want to do that, just buy it any other way you want. It's not a problem. So a quick look at the specs of the Honor Router 3 AX. That means it's Wi-Fi 6, 802.11ax, 3000. That's the total bandwidth that the device can support. It supports 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, which means it supports 802.11b, GN, AC, and AX. So you've got 2x2 MIMO on the 2.4 gigahertz. That's B, G, N, and AX. Maximum speed up to 574 megabits a second. Then once you get to the 5 gigahertz, you've got 2x2 MIMO, so you've got 802.11 AC and AX with a maximum speed of 2,402 megabits a second. 2,402 plus 574, approximately 3,000. That's where you get the name of the device here, the AX3000. So what does the Honor Router 3 support? Well, it supports OFDMA, as we've discussed, because it's a Wi-Fi 6 thing. It supports 160 megahertz channels, so that's a much wider channel than you get normally, and I'll demo that to you in a minute, talk about the speed they get through that. And it also has its own mesh networking, which is quite interesting, because if you watch my video on tri-band mesh networking, this will actually be allowed to be part of a dual band mesh network. If you've got two of these routers, you press the high button and they kind of match up to each other. It's got other great features that you might want: bandwidth controls, parental controls, the ability to remove unauthorized devices with just one click, schedule Wi-Fi access on and off, and guest Wi-Fi access. And we'll just look at some of these here. If you can notice down here, when you set the 5 gigahertz, normally it's 20, 40, 80, but actually look, you can set it 20, 40, 80, 160. So that's why they're calling it Wi-Fi 6 Plus. This shows here that you can set the Wi-Fi timer to turn the Wi-Fi on or off at certain times. That's good for allowing people, just to disconnect for a little while and do their homework or whatever it is else you want to suggest that people should do, rather than just being on the internet all the time. Useful little feature there. Also, you can limit access to the internet, so that's different to turning off the Wi-Fi. Maybe there's still access to internal systems, a media server, or other kind of, smart TVs, whatever you want access to, but you can actually turn off the internet there. And again, you can set the dates and times and everything. And here's just a quick list of, I had just 2 devices connected here, and you can just go to here and just turn off access to the internet immediately if you find there's something suspicious going on here. And the final thing is you can have a guest Wi-Fi network, which means they don't get access to anything else on your LAN, so they wouldn't have access to your Plex server or to your smart TVs, your Chromecast or anything else, but they will have access directly to the internet, so that enables to keep your stuff private and away from other people's stuff. These are all features of the Honor Router 3. Now, I did some testing because I wanted to test out Wi-Fi 6 to see what it really meant. So here is a pseudo picture of my house. Down here in the bottom left hand corner we have the router, and this is a similar setup that I've showed you in my mesh network testing and in the Wi-Fi extender testing. I did exactly the same kind of things for those videos. So if we start here in this actual office with a Wi-Fi 5 client, and that's actually, I'll tell you now, that was a MacBook Pro, only supports up to Wi-Fi 5 because of its age, and so that was a good use case here. I was managing to get 592 megabits per second connecting to a LAN test server. Wasn't relying on the internet for this. This is to a LAN test server, so these are the true best speeds you can get. If you then connected with a MacBook Air M1, which supports Wi-Fi 6, which I did, I was then getting 730 megabits per second. So that's obviously a good leap there. Shows you the advantage of Wi-Fi 6 just in terms of pure processing throughput, in terms of overall throughput. But of course it would be even better if there were multiple Wi-Fi 6 clients because of OFDMA, as we talked about. But here's the interesting thing: if I use a Huawei P40 which supports 160 megahertz channels, then that number bumped up to 902 megabits then. So almost gigabit real life. This is an actual transferring of data, not a theoretical number, but actual transfer of data, 902 megabits a second. If we go over here to this bedroom, and again we're using the 2 MacBooks and the P40, notice here down to 340 megabits a second, not to be sneezed at, of course, quite a reasonable number. 480 megabits a second for the Wi-Fi 6, 432, notice better than Wi-Fi 5, but actually not as good as the Wi-Fi 6, probably because it's the difference in a laptop and a smartphone. Smartphone, of course, smaller antennas being held in the hand. Wi-Fi 6 on a MacBook, bigger antennas, it was able to do a better job. And then if we zip down to the hallway, other end of the hallway here, going through what, maybe 2 walls here, depending on how the signal travels, then 340 megabits a second for Wi-Fi 5, 400 megabits a second for Wi-Fi 6, 360 megabits a second for 160 megahertz channel on the P40. And then finally, the weakest spot in my house, there's other appliances and other bits of furniture, so this signal does kind of suffer by the time it gets through to here. 55 megabits a second on the Wi-Fi 5, 96 megabits a second on the Wi-Fi 6, and 76 6 megabits per second on the P40. Again, the difference in a laptop and a smartphone in the hand. So the question is that worth your upgrade? Well, if you kind of look at this one here as a kind of a not sitting on top of the router kind of thing, then you can see it as a good performance jump by going over to Wi-Fi 6. And as I said, even better if you've got multiple Wi-Fi 6 clients in your house and it can use the OFDMA. Okay, just to let you know, you can get the router 3 for €79.90 in Germany, France, Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, and so on. That translates to £79.99 in the UK. As I said, there is an affiliate link and a non-affiliate link actually in the description below. If you want to help out the channel and you really want to buy one of these, then just use that link. Otherwise, there is also a link where you can get more information from the Honor website. Okay, that's it. My name is Gary Sims. This is Gary Explains. I really hope you enjoyed this look at Wi-Fi 6, OFDMA, and some real-world testing to show you what you can get with a Honor Router 3 and some Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 devices. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you like these kind of videos, don't rely on the recommendation algorithm. Better to subscribe and hit that bell notification icon. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.